and welcome to the final installment in our Warhammer 40,000 Faction Focus series. I am joined by Emissary of the Silent King himself, Adam Camilleri, and today we are talking about the Necrons. Adam, thanks for joining us.
My absolute pleasure. Yeah, he wouldn't let me on the throne. Essentially, he sees me as just another menhir, so I just float around from time to time. But we're here to talk about the final faction we're going to be giving you guys a deep dive into, that being the three brilliant detachments here for the Necrons.
So before we dive into the detachments themselves, how do we think Necrons are going to deal with the challenges of the new edition?
I think fairly well. Obviously, Necrons have been one of the best factions from the previous edition. They've been towards the top of the competitive metagame, or just having some of the most robust and consistent rules for the entire of the edition. So I think they're going to continue that momentum into 11th edition, but I think the vast majority of their units are going to handle a lot of the new questions being asked of us. The one I find interesting is that a lot of the designed armies that existed in the previous edition predicated around large bricks of warriors and wraiths, etc., they're going to struggle a little bit more with the action economy portion of the mission structure, but then they're going to play and the basics portions, the holding of the objectives, the saturating of the midboard extremely powerfully, so it most likely evens out.
Yeah. So you think we might see Necron armies with more of those smaller units, like your kind of flayed ones and tomb blades, that sort of thing, thrown into the mix alongside those big, durable monster vehicle and infantry blocks?
Yeah, so it remains to be seen, but you're going to have to reevaluate the balance between those. How many of the large durable bricks do you take versus how many of the small units and the action pieces, the utility pieces that you take?
Great stuff. Well, let's dive straight into the detachments. The first one is Hand of the Dynasty. This is a detachment that buffs the battle line units in your army, the Immortals, the Necron Warriors. Very rare to see a Necron army without at least some of these in, right? So this makes those more powerful.
Exactly right. So your Immortals and Necron Warriors, your battle line units will just get Assault. They will just have Assault. In addition to that, when a friendly Necrons or Warriors or Immortals unit is selected to make an advance move, they can still perform an action. This is what I was saying about the action economy. Right now we see a lot of Warriors, not as many Immortals, and I think this is a great reason to bring some small units of Immortals back into your armies.
If you've picked, particularly if you're up against missions that ask you to do lots of actions,
correct,
this immediately gives you those little 5-man unit of Immortals, which are one of the cheaper units in your army, advancing forward and shooting, or advancing forward and doing those actions. Still quite durable when they get fired upon.
Yes. I quite like it. I think it's good. Giving Assault to Necron Warriors is one of the few abilities that they do not have. That you could give them, depending on what characters and what support pieces you put around them, you can really kind of give them whatever they kind of need. And Assault it's kind of been rad for them to have.
Speaking of other abilities you can give to Necrons, there are some enhancements that you can have in this detachment. One of them is for Warriors, one of them is for Immortals. We're going to look at the Immortal one today. It is Tools of Dominion, and it gives your Immortals Rapid Fire 1.
Yep, nice, clean, easy one here. Great on the Tesla carbines, getting more chances to get the sustained hits on the 6s and really ramp up the number of dice that you're throwing per unit.
Yeah, and it's pretty good on either of the guns, right? So you're either having sustained hits or you're having those lethal hits.
Exactly.
Both of them are great to fish for on the hit roll. You probably putting that on a reinforced unit, right, with like a 10-strong unit of Immortals.
Yeah, you'd think if you're going to put an enhancement on a squad, you want to be going for the maximum size of that squad. Yeah,
but quite a scary fire base at that point from that.
Yeah, especially into some of the things that do well into Necron Warriors. Of course, if Necron Warriors get caught in a grind situation against another numerous unit, they can find themselves just stuck there all game. And of course, if they have the same amount of objective control as you,
and big Tyranid units, that sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly right. And so just having like a decent chance to do a bit of screen clear before they go in, or horde clear from a unit of Immortals, does give you some assurances.
Yeah. Well, let's have a look at a couple of the stratagems. We'll start off with Will of the Conqueror, and this effectively allows you to secure an objective with your Immortals or your Necron Warriors.
Correct. So one command point at the end of your movement phase, the best timing for this kind of ability, your Immortals or Necron Warriors will secure the objective. In fact, so you'll maintain control of that objective even if you move off it, have no miniatures on it. We've seen very different versions of this rule in the previous edition. They've all been homogenized into this one keyword called secured. Once you've secured an objective, you maintain control of it until your opponent makes it not.
Yeah. And then the other stratagem we're going to look at is Nano Saturation. This is an ability to fire back at an enemy unit that targets one of your units. We know that Necrons are very durable. There's big blocks of Immortals, the very large blocks of Warriors you can have. This is a great stratagem on them.
Yes, this is good. So this is one command point. Your opponent's shooting phase when an enemy unit has targeted a friendly, of the two units we named, Immortals and Warriors. Unit can shoot using the snapshot, but and when doing so, they can only target that enemy unit. So it's really kind of funny because a lot of people will try and do a little bit of chip damage to a unit of Immortals or a unit of Warriors, especially if you've got a unit of 20 Warriors. You'll want to try and kill it low enough that they can't reanimate back to full strength. So usually that means you're killing more than 9 is the usual math that I go for. If I'm gonna try to hurt Necron Warriors at all, I'm gonna try to kill more than 9 of them. And so, you can try and make them pay for that. Be like, oh, you wanted to use a small unit of, say, gargoyles who might only kill 1 or 2, well, 20, like 18 shoot back at you on snapshots. Yeah. And it's actually quite fearsome. And the fact that you could combo that technically with a unit of 10 Immortals, snap shooting, with the assault, the rapid fire, the sustained, all those things, it actually gets pretty scary, man.
Yeah, there's some great combos. So moving on to the next detachment, we're going to look at Sky Shroud Spearhead. This is a detachment that bolsters your Tomb Blades, but also has some great synergies with some of the mounted destroyer units.
Correct. So in this detachment, friendly Tomb Blade units will just have a deep strike, which is fantastic. Then when a friendly Tomb Blade unit is selected to shoot, if they made an ingress move this turn, as in they arrived on the table this turn, they will have +1 to hit in addition. So pseudo ignores cover in a roundabout's way, but also just +1 to hit is a fantastic
just
ability.
Catching enemy units in the open is just excellent, right? So
that's
really good. A bunch of great enhancements and stratagems. Deepening Madness is one of the enhancements. It's an upgrade, which means you can give it to a unit. You can give it to any destroyer mounted unit, and it means that the unit's ranged attacks now have assault. They're already fast units. This makes them have an even greater threat range.
I like this one on a unit of 2 heavy destroyers the most, in my opinion. We're taken with the gun that makes the most sense to you. A lot of the time when I'm playing, Master Militarum or my Imperial Knights, and my opponent has a couple of heavy destroyers with their, amazing Gorse cannons that are very deadly, I will do a lot of pre-measuring and try and keep myself off the lanes of fire away from those models because I can't afford to lose a Rogal Dawn to a single unit of 2 guys. And so this just really changes the output, giving assault to the unit, adding a potential 6 more inches to their threat range to get into the firing lanes, makes them a lot harder to avoid.
Yeah. Looking at some of the stratagems, the one I'm going to look at is Evasive Protocols. This is an ability that we've seen across a few different armies. Effectively, if you're targeting a Necron mounted unit, so Tomb Blades, but also lots of the destroyer units, if the strength of the attack is greater than the toughness, -1 to wound.
This is really key. This is really good. I don't really have much more to say about this. It's a fantastic defensive ability.
So last up, we're going to look at the Pharaon's Armory. This is a really fun detachment, and it's basically about your Titanic fly units.
Yes,
which is the monolith right?
detachment.
The great big floating pyramids that tend to accompany.
So good. Armies. So this is monolith and the Tesseract Vault specifically. Well, nothing else will be affected in your army, but friendly Necrons Titanic Fly units have +6 inches of movement. This is called Empowered Engines as a detachment rule, and oh boy,
very fast pyramids.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's one of the big issues. So it's a massive footprint unit, and of course it's very imposing, takes up a lot of space on the table, but can come into some logistical issues negotiating around terrain and being able to clear the base pass terrain features. And so this +6 inches of move is kind of massive in the increase of the threat range. It sounds
massive. +6 move is great.
Huge.
Right?
It's a massive, cinder block of a monolith.
It combines quite nicely with the new fly rules in the new edition, which previously you'd have to kind of measure up and over scenery pieces to navigate them. Now you just go, take off 2 from my move and I can move fully.
Correct.
So effectively, take off 4 from my move and I can...
Yes, well, I'm getting +6 -2.
So I add on 4 to my normal move. It's how far you can go over anything. It means your monoliths can basically leapfrog over large pieces of terrain.
I think this is massive, and this is so much fun. I love monoliths so much, and I want to see them on the table more often.
Well, we might see them. There's a few great enhancements and a few great stratagems in the mix as well. The enhancement we're going to look at is Pre-Locational Optimizer. You can give it to a Necron model, and if they come out of an Eternity Gate with a unit, that unit can have either lethal hits or sustained hits.
This is pretty good. It lines up very well into a couple of different shooting assets. So it's this turn as well. So it's the unit's range attacks, get lethal or sustained. It's quite nice. There's a couple of different units you can do this on, but I do like using this on just reinforcing your infantry units into the fray.
Yeah, so really solid little enhancement. And then the strategy we're going to look at is subsurface quantum weave. As you might imagine, a giant pyramid is quite hard to kill already. They've got quite high toughness, great save, lots of wounds. This makes them even harder.
This is wild. This is Armor of Contempt. It's one command point your opponent's shooting phase or the fight phase. It's fully fledged Armor of Contempt, people. That
So -1 AP.
-1
yeah.
to incoming armor penetration is how this reads. It attacks that target your unit, -1 AP. Monolith has a 2+ safe. As stock, as standard. This is really, really powerful.
And it's significant as well because you won't usually be able to get cover. So whereas previously you might have been banking on, skirting around some scenery pieces to try and get some cover saves against like last scanners, melters, that sort of thing. This puts you back where you were before, basically, to be able to take the really heavy firepower on some of those things.
And the fact that it works in the fight phase as well, so even being punched in combat by AP3 attacks, AP4 attacks, theoretically, I think this is just awesome. I love this detachment so much.
Brilliant. Well, Adam, thank you so much for joining us. That was the last of our Warhammer 40,000 faction focus series. You can watch the whole series on the Warhammer YouTube channel. We hope you've enjoyed it. We'll see you later.